Gosh, I'm trying to hold it in right now. The support's been overwhelming.
Tickets for Nashville this week are nearly sold out. We are calling this the Bryson effect.
I mean, with how much support we have out here, and it's just the start, that's a testament to what Live Golf is and what the Crushers are doing, what our team's doing, and what we're trying to do for Nashville and places all across the globe. So super excited for the future of Live.
It was nice to at least walk down the last few holes, or at least the last hole, knowing that it was pretty much done. It's never safe, but very proud of everybody, and of course Tiro. I mean, what a week to get his first win in a few years and win by 6 in an absolutely dominant performance the way he did. It was absolutely incredible, so I couldn't be happier for him.
Certainly with not winning for 3.5 years, you kind of naturally question if you can do it again. So I'm just proud of myself to be able to get through that and play the way I did.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. It's our midweek edition of the show, which means the tournaments at Copa America and the Euro are heating up. We'll have the latest on the pitch, the latest finals in soccer, and what is to come the rest of this week and the weekend. Pat Evans joins us from Legal Sports Report with the very latest on Betway leaving the United States. Jacob Kamaker weighs in on the very latest in sports. We'll touch every single topic that there is to touch here on the program. And Simon Applebaum with the very latest in sports television ratings. He joins us each and every Wednesday here on the show. But we begin, of course, with some soccer, and let's get started with the Copa America 2-0 final, as many predicted yesterday. Argentina defeats Canada, and in a game like this, you would call it not particularly close. They score 2 goals. Canada scores none. Julian Alvarez scored in the first half. Leo Messi scored in the second half. In fact, Messi was scoreless through Argentina's 5 Copa America matches, suffering a right groin adductor injury, but he has returned, and he played well yesterday. And so now Argentina will play in the Copa America final on Sunday in South Florida. They await the Colombia-Uruguay game, which will be played tonight, and we will, of course, discuss that at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern. All of the action will be covered for you right here on Pharrell and in-game live tonight. Uruguay, Colombia, semifinals tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern. Over in the Euro Cup, Spain defeats France by a final of 2-1. In fact, France took the lead within 10 minutes, but Spain responded with 2 goals in quick succession, 15 minutes to take the lead, and they never gave it back. Big story here. 16-year-old player Lamine Yamal, 16 years old on Spain, had a goal in this game, and it turned out to be the equalizer. Spain has now won all 6 games at the Euro 2024 and are trying to win for the 4th time in the championship. The semifinals, in terms of who they will play, will be determined today. 3 o'clock Eastern, Netherlands and England in the Euro semifinals. 3 o'clock Eastern today. Another match we'll watch for you live here on SportsGrid later this afternoon and throughout the evening. Big story from Team USA in the Olympics as they get ready to play Serbia on July 28th. One player and an NBA champion is not going to be on the roster. Kawhi Leonard, according to several published reports, has pulled out of Team USA. He's gone out of the Olympics for an injury. There are some reports that Derek White of the Boston Celtics could potentially replace him on the roster. Still working through that. This just happened within the last hour. Kawhi Leonard, one of the greats of the game, not playing on Team USA in the Olympics. releasing a statement essentially that they'll have to replace him in Paris this summer. Also, yesterday, very interesting note in the National Football League. For some reason, the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott, was seen in a walking boot. Now, naturally, this is going to get a lot of attention because, again, this is just OTAs. But essentially, at this point, this is just to protect his foot, apparently. Needless to say, it brings up a lot more questions than answers.
Yeah, I'm great. Honestly, I'm getting older. It's the same ankle, right, that I snapped and had a nasty surgery on 4 years ago. So, a couple of hard days of training, and, you get a little sore, and then you're going on a fishing trip, and you want to protect it and make sure that things don't get worse. So, literally, it's absolutely nothing. That's why I said people are reaching, trying to make things that they aren't. I'm getting older, have to take care of my body, have to be smart. And if I can take precautions and lessening something by putting on a boot, I'm going to do it. And so, sorry that it caused such a whirlwind.
All right, 34 years old. I guess it does make sense. If indeed that is the truth, Dak Prescott will open up with NFL training camps. They all begin later this month. And the Hall of Fame game, folks, is the first day in August this year. Early start for the NFL preseason. Can't wait for that. Okay, the Cincinnati Reds couldn't wait for the debut of Rhys Hines. Maybe they should have called him up earlier in the season. Another huge game for Hines yesterday. First player ever with 5 extra base hits in his first 2 games. He homered again and fell 1 single shy of the cycle. So talk about rookie success. My gosh, the fans in Cincinnati absolutely loving it. Last night, Jose Ramirez of the Cleveland Guardians became the second player to get intentionally walked 3 times and have 3 hits in a game since Major League Baseball started tracking this in 1955. Cleveland beat Detroit 9-8 in 10 innings, and also Cleveland announced that Jose Ramirez is going to participate in the Home Run Derby on Monday night. They still need to fill that roster out with 2 more players. The Dodgers placed Tyler Glasnow on the 15-day injured list. He'll spend some time resting during the All-Star break. Obviously not going to pitch in the All-Star game, so he'll need to be replaced. Zach Wheeler also left last night's game in the same affair with some back tightness. He will probably need to be replaced in the All-Star game as well, though Bryce Harper did return in that game last night. And now we go to a story that nobody ever wants to talk about. That's for sure. Me either. Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco. You may have heard about this about a year ago, maybe a little bit less. Issues with some domestic issues, of course, in the Dominican Republic. Well, now he has been formally charged with sexual abuse and sexual exploitation against a minor in the Dominican Republic. And reporters in the DR are also saying child trafficking is potentially one of the charges against Wander Franco, who faces a very lengthy jail sentence if indeed he is convicted. Okay, a lot of kids in camp all over the country. So camp day across the WNBA today. Lots of afternoon games, in fact, coming up at 12 Eastern. New York Liberty, Connecticut Sun, one of the games on tap. Atlanta Dream versus the Chicago Sky. And one of the marquee games always, because the Indiana Fever is playing, it's the Washington Mystics and the Indiana Fever. Those are some of the games coming up. We mentioned Kawhi Leonard, not surprised. Paul George left the Clippers. George said yesterday he was disrespected. Team USA's final exhibition game against Canada is tonight. Kevin Durant not going to play, so short Kawhi, short Durant. I mean, Team USA may have to pick up a couple of guys. Former Timberwolves employee has avoided a jail sentence for gross misdemeanor charge of unauthorized computer access, according to ESPN. Naturally, this is a story we'll follow for you as well. All right, now a big story in the world of sports betting. We talked about a company that was very popular outside of the United States called Betway. They entered the United States for sports betting when it became legal. They have decided this morning, according to Legal Sports Report, that they are out of USA. So those of you who are betting on Betway or ever have, you may want to get that money out because they are departing. Novak Djokovic advances to Wimbledon semifinals as the opponent that he was going to face, Alec de Minaur, ended up withdrawing with a hip injury. De Minaur is from Australia. He was seeded 9th in the tournament. He announced he's pulling out of the tournament just hours before he and Djokovic were supposed to face off at center court. So Djokovic essentially with a day of rest, not having to play today at Wimbledon. Brett Favre is trying to sue Shannon Sharpe. He's been trying to do this for a while. He asked a federal appeals court on Tuesday to revive a defamation lawsuit against against Sharpe, former tight end, amidst a backdrop of a Mississippi welfare scandal one of the state's largest public corruption cases. Essentially, I'll break it down for you. Favre does not like what Shannon Sharpe had to say about him, so he's suing. And also, this sort of surprising, Hurricane Beryl, and I'm all too familiar with hurricanes here in South Florida. This one was just going all around the country and ended up hitting the United States here in Texas and hit NRG Stadium, suffering damage to its roof, very similar to Hurricane Ike back in 2008. And the Texans play a home game against the Baltimore Ravens in September of 2008, which caused a postponement. No word on what will happen, but there's a lot of time to get the stadium ready, I would assume, for the opening night for the Houston Texans this season. They're expected to have a big year as well. All right, that's the latest news, notes, and headlines. For those of you who are getting ready for the big soccer matches today, you're looking for the odds, head on over to the SportsGrid app. Just open up your phone and download our app by using this QR code. It's available for both iOS and Android. Games today in the Euro, games today in Copa America, not to mention a ton of afternoon action in the WNBA as well. Make sure you download it. It's available right now. Coming up next, anything to make of this whole Dak Prescott story, or are we just so hungry for football news that we're making stuff up? We'll ask Jacob Kamaker that next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
The bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year?
It's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's in the back nine of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job.
Pharrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry. We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get
so.
on the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Well, less than a month from now, we've got our first NFL preseason game. I was just sitting around yesterday as we were preparing for shows and just kind of looking at things. All-Star break is next week. And I was like, when is the NFL going to begin here? And I looked and I saw August 1st is the first preseason game. Now, naturally, I know it stinks, but it's great to have football back, and it's coming so soon now. Training camp's open in 2 weeks. College football less than a month. And the NFL a little bit over 2 months away, but preseason soon. Let's bring in Jacob Kamaker from Sporting News. And Jacob, look, I really still do enjoy sports this time of year. It's a little bit different than most times of the year, just simply because once the NBA Finals are over and the NHL Stanley Cup is over, there's not a lot. Let's just be honest. So sometimes what happens is that the final OTAs for the NFL get a lot of attention because it's like our final preview before training camp starts. So we begin with the story of Dak Prescott, who had a walking boot on at Dallas Cowboys camp. And as you just heard in the previous segment, Dak says it's much ado about nothing. It seems like a very reasonable explanation as to why he has it on. Do you believe everything that he said? Do you think that this is just simply precautionary?
I think it's fair to assume it's precautionary. At this point, we haven't heard anything about him needing any sort of extra surgery. He basically said that he worked out really hard a couple of days, and that old ankle injury he had when he snapped his leg back 4 years ago against the Giants, that just kind of acted up on him a little bit. But it doesn't seem like a big deal. It sounds like he's just doing it to be precautionary and just protect himself ahead of what's going to be an important season for him, because he's due for a new contract, and I think this is just his way of saying, I've got to make sure I take care of myself this year. I got to make sure I'm not hurt at any point during the season, or that could really affect my bottom line and my future. Obviously, a certain amount of it is out of his control, so I think this is him just going after what little control he can have over injuries and just being sure he's okay. Now, if I'm the Cowboys, though, I'm at least a little worried about this, because that is the old injury. It was a bad one when he suffered that leg injury. Had to be put in an air cast. So I'm keeping a very, very close eye on him because I don't want to end up in a situation where he goes down. Because without Dak Prescott this year, the Cowboys, I mean, they've lost some talent on the offensive line. They lost Tony Pollard. Asking Cooper Rush to carry that offense to victory, I don't love that idea. So if I'm the Cowboys, I'm trying to protect Dak as much as possible.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, and I was thinking the same thing. And then I took a step back and I thought about it, Jacob. And my answer is probably this. Without Dak Prescott, the Cowboys are going to have a really hard time. But Jacob, every team is going to have a really hard time without their starting quarterback. This is the day and age of the NFL. I think you could probably say that about 25 other teams in the NFL. There are no backup quarterbacks anymore that can succeed. It's very rare to have a situation like that. We saw that last year play out a little bit with the Cincinnati Bengals, although let's be honest, they had some decent backup quarterback play. They're hoping that doesn't happen this year. Joe Burrow basically saying, hey, look, I got a lot personally to prove this year. Certainly when he's healthy, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. The Bengals definitely missed him, goes without saying. His total on FanDuel this year for passing yards is 39.75. I know it's still early in the game to make these sort of predictions, but it's at least good to hear verbally that the guy is motivated. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's a very good sign for the Bengals, because he's been injured pretty much every year he's been in the league. And again, injuries aren't always the fault of the player, but it's been frustrating, I think, for Bengals fans to see him get injured during training camp and the preseason at times the past couple of years. Like, he had his little calf strain, and it didn't keep him out of action in the early stages of last season, but he clearly wasn't 100%. So I think just he's probably doing whatever he has to do to get himself either conditioned to avoid injuries. I know I've heard stories about Christian Watson on the Packers. I know he went to like a hamstring specialist because he's had hamstring issues to look at kind of what the issue was. So we've seen players being more proactive about injuries. I imagine that's what Burrow's doing as well. And I think if he stays healthy, I think he can easily pass for 4,000 yards in that offense. Just think about all the weapons they have with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And now they have the best receiving tight end Joe Burrow's probably ever had, Mike Gesicki. I know he maybe isn't the most exciting name in the world, but he's going to be able to catch passes at the tight end position, something that Burrow hasn't really had a lot of. So I think if he stays healthy, the Bengals are going to be a really threatening team in that AFC race. And even if he has to miss a few games, like you said, Jake Browning was decent last year. So yeah, they can get by with him. It's just a matter of, hey, how much time is Burrow going to miss? And you hope it's less than 3 games.
Yeah, and I think Burrow being back in full represents their odds over on FanDuel, where they're basically even with the Baltimore Ravens to win the division. The interesting note here, I think, Jacob, from my perspective, I'm not surprised where the Steelers are. I guess I'm surprised that Cleveland has fallen back a little bit, plus 480 to win the division here. What am I missing there with Cleveland? I thought they had a nice year last year.
I think it's just people aren't confident in Deshaun Watson, and I get that, but if you take the Browns roster outside of quarterback, they don't really have much of a weakness, and they might have one of the best rosters in the league. So I get not being confident in Watson or saying, oh, he hasn't been good since he's gone to the Browns, but they do have Jameis Winston in the background there. I know, again, guy who turns the ball over a lot may not be exciting, but I think they're going to be in the race, and I think the Ravens, who have lost a few starting offensive linemen from last year, might take a little step back. So I could see that being a three-team cement mixer up top there. And you can never rule the Steelers out of literally stealing games. That's what they do with their defense. So Mike Tomlin never has a losing record. So I think that division could be one where all the teams are late in the season fighting for winning records.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. And honestly, a division where Baltimore we know is going to be there in the end. There's always one or two other teams that are fighting to make the playoffs. All right, Jacob, well, I know you're on vacation next week, so am I. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. And when we do, training camp will be open in the NFL. So I would imagine we'll be hitting a lot on the NFL and the baseball trade deadline, too, as well. Thanks for coming on.
Yep, thanks, Craig. Enjoy your time off.
All right, Jacob Kamaker joining us here on the show. Yes, quick note to those of you who watch NewsWire every day. I will be headed out to Arlington for the All-Star game. So Mike Blewett, I believe, will be filling in for me next Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But we got the SportsGrid Sound Off coming up next. Don't go away.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year?
It's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's in the back nine of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job.
Pharrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Mentioned earlier in the show, by the way, that Kawhi Leonard not going to be playing on Team USA's team when they head to the Olympics and play on the 28th in their first game against Serbia. We also mentioned the possibility of Derek White from the Boston Celtics taking that spot. There are now several reports saying that White indeed will be the extra man added to Team USA's roster. So that note coming just a short time ago. Meanwhile, soccer is basically dominating the headlines right now, and no bigger headline than the Euro Cup, which is coming up later today. Now, it's really incredible when you think about it that Felix Weyer, who was a referee who served a match-fixing ban in 2005, is going to officiate a Euro 2024 semifinal match today between England and the Netherlands. Zwayer, he was suspended for 6 months in 2005 for accepting over a $325 million bribe on a match, or $325 bribe, on a match between a pair of German clubs. The official's 2005 suspension led to a notable interaction with England's Jude Bellingham a few years ago. Bellingham was frustrated with Zwayer's officiating during that time and basically implying that the official didn't deserve to work the match after this previous scandal. Bellingham was disappointed in at least one of Zwayer's match-defining calls. As this referee is back at it today, check out these comments from Bellingham back in 2021.
You give a referee that's, match fixed before the biggest game in Germany, what do you expect? Yeah, it's frustrating. I know I've not seen it properly, but I definitely think Marco's up there. I don't know what you have to do to be able to get a foul checked. I can understand, they've checked it, and if it's his hand, okay, but for me, it was looking away, and that one up there, I don't get how you can't check it, but, I'm not a referee. He apparently is, so, yeah.
It's really hard to believe that they can't find anybody else to ref this game. I must be missing something significant here, that somebody who is accused of match fixing still gets to be a ref again. Like, shouldn't that be like an all-time ban? Like, forever? What am I missing here with this story? Are there just not enough? Is this like the starting quarterback in the NFL where you have to play who you play? I would feel like there's got to be somebody better. Anyway, don't understand this one. Okay, here's what I do understand. Zach Edey was one of the best college basketball players in the land in the Big Ten last year. Now, some people thought his selection was good in the NBA draft. Some people thought it was bad. But he's one of the up-and-coming big men who, by the way, 15, 20 years ago would have been the first pick or the second pick in the NBA draft. This day and age, that's not the case anymore. We thought we would check in with our very own Ben Stevens on what Zach Edey could potentially look like at the next level.
Can Zach Edey actually win the NBA Rookie of the Year award? The two-time reigning National Player of the Year in college basketball, the first to do that in nearly 4 decades, is now the Rookie of the Year favorite in the association. He surprised some by even being a lottery pick, and after only one NBA Summer League debut, a 14-point, 15-rebound, and 4-block performance, Zach Edey has vaulted up the odds board, past number 1 pick Zachary Rizache, past number 2 pick Alex Sarr. It is now Zach Edey, who was selected 9th overall by the Memphis Grizzlies at a plus 600 number to be the NBA Rookie of the Year award favorite. He is used to taking home the hardware. Might he do that in his very first year in the association? Craig, back to you.
All right, thanks very much, Ben. Now, let's get back to a little baseball and the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. As I told you on Monday, the rosters that you saw are not going to be the same when the game is played in a week, and that indeed is going to be the case. We're having dropouts happen all over the place. In terms of pitching, we've lost another one. Tyler Glasnow is out. Cincinnati Reds pitcher Hunter Green is in, and Green told the media yesterday that he deserved to be an All-Star.
Maybe for other people. For myself, I've always been, I've always had huge expectations for myself, and sometimes it can hurt me. I'd like to put too much, probably expectation on myself, but it's good at the same time because it keeps me hungry, it keeps me motivated, it doesn't allow me to get complacent. So it might be, a validating moment for others that might have second-guessed or didn't believe my process, but for myself, I'm honestly not surprised.
Now, that's one replacement in the National League. Another one could potentially come today. Zach Wheeler, the starting pitcher potentially for the National League, had a back issue last night in the game against the Los Angeles Dodgers. No word on whether or not he still will pitch or even play in the game. He'll have to make that decision here in the next day or two. Coming up next, we'll talk some sports betting and Betway. Pat Evans joins us.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game
And
time
guess what?
decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year?
It's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's in the back nine of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job.
Pharrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Time for us to check in with Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. We got some updated news on the company Betway. They are bailing from action here in the United States. We'll get to that here in just a minute. But first, let's check in with Pat on the very latest on DraftKings. Pat, thanks for coming on the show. I read this yesterday, and so here is kind of my question. So I see that DraftKings is getting fined $100,000, and I also understand that you guys reported that it was for reporting inaccurate sports betting data. Why would a company get fined $100,000 for reporting inaccurate sports betting data? What is it specifically that would lead to that? That's what I don't understand from this.
Yeah, so this is kind of an interesting case. It's DraftKings, came out. They responded to the letter from the New Jersey regulators and said it was a coding issue that kind of accounted for parlay bets from other bets, and so it skewed the numbers a little bit. Under their argument, they said, it doesn't really affect the overall revenue. It shouldn't affect the state level taxes, all that stuff. But the regulators came back and said, well, no, it did affect our reporting. We put out bad numbers for the first time in at least 13 years. We had to issue a correction. And, DraftKings now says they've fixed the coding from the new kind of program they were using at that point. And yeah, I mean, basically it comes down, it seems like New Jersey regulators are just really upset they had to, issue a correction on some misreported numbers. It is a huge fine for New Jersey. I think they also issued a fine from 2022 yesterday for about $2,000 to FanDuel for a violation. So, that shows kind of the discrepancy and how serious they're taking this issue. And the chief regulator had some really strong words. I urge people to go read that story at LSR and kind of read her quotes, because it kind of takes DraftKings to task, even though they've tried to come back and fix everything as best they can and correct their wrongs. But yeah, it's a pretty significant fine from New Jersey on DraftKings, and it shows how serious the DraftKings regulators or the New Jersey regulators are taking this issue.
Yeah, DraftKings regulators not as much apparently from this story. Okay, so let's dive into, it looks like we're going to go through 2024 on the very quiet side for sports betting being legalized, at least for the third and fourth quarter. Let's get to Delaware here. What's the latest on their bill to pass?
So yeah, Delaware just went live with their online sports betting offerings through Brett Rivers and the lottery earlier this year. But around the same time, a legislative report came out from a study group that was allowed last year or created last year that said, hey, let's open this market. We need to open up to more operators. We can bring in more tax revenue that way. And so, a bill was introduced this session to say, okay, let's go beyond the lottery. Let's allow the 3 casinos in Delaware to each have 2 skins. That would, provide pretty much the base level national operators that we're seeing in most states come in and have a nice robust market there in Delaware. But it did not gain any traction in the legislature. It just kind of died with the session. So we're at least one more year of just a lottery monopoly and Bet Rivers in Delaware with online sports betting. Kind of what it looked like was a lot of legislators kind of had hesitancies to pass it because they were like, well, we just launched. Let's see what it can do as just a monopoly before we really try to mess with the market at all. So like you said, we're not seeing very much action in terms of new markets or even expanding markets, and Delaware staying the same this year.
Okay, finally, let's get to the story that broke this morning. I saw Mike Mazzio report this on social media, and I'm happy to have you on, Pat, to follow up. 2 companies, Betway, who I've heard of, Sahara Bets. I could not even told you that Sahara Bets was even around in the United States. No disrespect to them, but I had never heard of it. Betway, I think I'm more popular because I see their logos and everything on these soccer matches in European leagues and things like that. Did they just not have success, Pat, here in the United States because they announced that they're no longer going to be operating here?
Yeah, so Super Group, the Betway owner, has decided, and this was kind of hinted at back at the beginning of the year or even late last year when our Matt Waters kind of was doing some digging into earnings reports and stuff, and Super Group kind of hinted at the idea that Betway would be pulled out of North America. And sure enough, today we get an announcement that Betway's gonna leave the 9 states they are live in, just because, as the CEO put it in the statement, we just don't see a long-term path to profitability. And I mean, in the 9 states they're in, they've got pretty small market share, single digits, low single digits. And so, yeah, that just kind of shows how, DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, Caesars, the big names, they've got plenty of kind of market share to make things work and kind of fix things around. But when you're playing at numbers that low and you're a big European operator, it's not so great. I mean, this is at least the second big European operator that we've seen pull out of North America. Late last year, Unibet or Kindred pulled Unibet out of North America. And so it just kind of goes to show you that just because you're big in Europe doesn't mean you're going to be successful in the U.S. And that is to say, I mean, they had a huge deal with the NHL. If you watch the NHL playoffs, you saw the Betway logo all over.
Yep.
To your point, soccer, I mean, even Ted Lasso, one of the main teams in there was Betway. So they got lots of brand exposure in North America and just have not been able to move very much of a needle here. And so they'll be getting out fairly soon, I would expect. They are going to maintain their online casino operations here. They're live in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. They see much more potential there. They said they'll expand in markets as opportunities arise there. Now, Sahara Bets, to your point, is interesting. They were only live in Arizona.
There you go.
They were the partners of the Arizona Coyotes because the same owner owned the company and the sports book. And with the Arizona Coyotes selling off their assets and the team going to Utah and an inactive franchise effectively being abandoned by the owner recently because of some he had hoped to revive it within the next 5 years with a new stadium or a new arena. And I would assume that would have kept the Sahara Bets kind of brand alive, but they're leaving. They never got much of a market share in Arizona either. And so this is, it was kind of expected, I think, once we knew that the Coyotes were no more, that Sahara Bets would also be no more. What is interesting is Betway was also live in Arizona, and we're in the midst of an open Arizona license process. So once Betway leaves, that'll be down to 14 active licenses. There can be up to 20. So there's lots of licenses open in Arizona. I don't know what kind of operators are out there that could find any interest in Arizona at this point, because in the last 2 open license processes, Bet365 and Fanatics, which were kind of the only major operators out there looking to get anywhere, were introduced into the market. So, maybe Circa Sports with their proximity with the giant Circa Resort up in Las Vegas, or Underdog Sports kind of starting their real sportsbook experience, they might be interested. But 6 sportsbook slots is quite a few for a state like Arizona, which is a top 8 sports betting market in the U.S. in terms of handle. So there is lots of opportunity. But again, 90% is dominated by, the FanDuel, DraftKings, Caesars, and BetMGM. So not a ton of space for the rest of them.
Yeah, indeed. All right, so let's close it out. I know that you were in Canada covering sports betting conference there. Really interesting story and something I don't think we've ever talked about here. Calgary Stampede, one of the largest annual rodeos, signs a contract with Play Alberta. Now, 2 questions here. How did this come together? And the second one, if you can make it quick here, can you bet on the rodeo? Like, I'm not even aware of this. Is this something you could bet on?
Yeah, Play Alberta is the solo operator as it stands right now, though Alberta will be opening up to more commercial operators. So this kind of seems like a significant partnership once you really dig down deep, because the Calgary Stampede welcomes 1.4 million people every year, and Alberta is only a province of like 4 million people. So it's a huge amount. And Play Alberta will be offering the Stampede event betting for the first time ever. So it's a really unique, weird partnership, but I think it works for Alberta, which is a very Western, Southwestern type experience in Canada.
All right, real cool. Thanks, Pat, for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll talk again next week.
Thanks as always, Craig.
All right, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report with us. All right, coming up next, Simon Applebaum is here. Olympics just a couple of weeks away. What will the coverage look like? Simon weighs in next.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game
And guess
time
what?
decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes you think
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year?
It's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's in the back 9 of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job.
Pharrell coast to coast, only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We wonder if Simon Applebaum's going to have to change his sleep habits because in order to cover the Olympics from the media side, it's going to have to be up pretty early in the morning to watch some of these events. His podcast tomorrow will be televised. Of course, we'll update on everything at the Paris Olympics, which is coming up later this month. Let's bring Simon in. And Simon, great to have you here. And, certainly a lot of sports discussion is heating up in terms of the Olympics. The trial's mostly over. We have some, Team USA basketball news. Last week we talked about Al Michaels and the use of his voice with artificial intelligence. Simply put, people forget how big the Olympics is, but it's sort of sneaking up, I feel like, on people this year.
I don't know, Craig. I think in Middle America, in some of the secondary market, by the way, it's great to be back with you again. Happy after 4 to everybody. In terms of, let's say, the secondary markets, Mid-America, some of the cities like Kansas City, St. Louis, Denver, etc., it is very big. But in New York, in Philadelphia, and a lot of the major markets, there's very little, if not any buzz about the Olympics. Now, in order for NBC to shift that, what they're doing is, with their primetime coverage, which has been slipping in terms of viewership the last couple of Olympics, we're going back to even before the start of the decade, they are rebooting their primetime coverage. And by the way, it will also be simulcast on Peacock. For one thing, it's going to be a whole different format. It's not going to be just highlight, 6 hours, behind, because the fact that the Olympics are 6 hours ahead in Paris of the United States. So what they're going to do is a couple things. First of all, they're going to have a gold medal moment in the first half hour. They're going to introduce it with a brand new, every night, special opening title sequence done by Imaginary Forces. If you know that company, they do some of the best title sequences for movies, things of Spider-Man and a lot of the Marvel films. A lot of good TV shows have gotten great titles from them. So they're going to do a title that will introduce, let's say, the ambiance of the Olympics each night. And then they're going to, in the first half hour, do the gold medal moment. Then in the third hour, around 10 o'clock Eastern time, they will do the event of the night. Here is like the big night, the big event that takes place during the day. In between, they're going to do a lot of athlete-generated content for the first time. In other words, the athletes themselves are going to actually produce segments for the first time in prime time. You're also going to see Snoop Dogg around the Olympic venues in Paris doing his thing. The whole idea is to try to make things more funky, especially for the urban markets. Will it work or not? I think a lot depends on the buzz that other people, other sports media give the Olympics and how well the coverage is. But you got to give credit to Rob Hyland, who is the primetime producer. At least he's trying something different to build back the audience. Two other things about the Olympics. Number one, one thing we don't know, but we found out and we confirmed it in the past week, is that most of the Olympic play-by-play and color commentators are not going to be in Paris. They're going to be in Stamford, Connecticut, where NBC has a studio, and they're going to do the play-by-play and the color commentary from there. The only sport that from start to finish in Paris that will have play-by-play and color commentary will be gymnastics. In terms of basketball, the preliminaries will be out of Stamford, but then no Eagle and crew will be in Paris for the key games.
Yeah, no, interesting. I mean, I wouldn't have guessed to hear that, especially with how big the Olympics is. But naturally, they have to make their broadcast decisions, financial decisions, I'm guessing as well. Okay, so this next story very compelling here because again, I've seen Top Gun and I've seen a lot of the movies that this company has made. Let's talk about this merge with Paramount Global and Skydance, and naturally what it means. You think for the future?
Well, if you know David Ellison, who is the head of Skydance, which with Redbird Capital is going to spend $8 billion to acquire Paramount Global, which includes CBS, CBS Sports, MTV, Nickelodeon, etc., you know that he is a very tech person because his father, of course, is Larry Ellison, the head of Oracle, one of the great software companies, one of the great tech companies around. And when this deal was announced a couple of days ago, on Monday morning, in a conference call to investors and also with reporters later on, Ellison made it clear, we want Paramount to be a tech content hybrid. And we want to, number one, really boost Paramount Plus. We want to make it as big a mega content service as there is. And we want to make more and more tech elements involved. I think once they get a hold of Paramount, which will probably be the first half of 2025, getting rid of all the regulatory issues, I think, number one, they will make a move into sports betting because, listen to this, Skydance has a sports division that is co-owned by the National Football League. So I think they're going to use that maneuver to try to get sports betting in. I think they're trying to make a deal with a FanDuel or a DraftKings or somebody like that. And they're going to try to use CBS Sports or CBS Sports Network to make sports betting go on the television set. Now, the other question is, what will CBS do? What will Paramount do before Skydance and Redbird take over? Couple things. I think they're going to do a review about where CBS Sports' channels on cable and smart TV sets and devices go. CBS Sports Network, CBS Sports AQ, their all-sports news channel, and Golazo, the all-soccer channel that was launched over a year ago. I think of the three, CBS Sports HQ may be done for. Why? Because all sports news channels have not done very well. ESPN News is a shadow of what it used to be. Mizlu, the independent sports programmer of the 80s, tried a sports news network. Didn't last a year. So I think that may be of the networks done for. However, I think one of the things that Skydance will do is two things. One, I think they will produce Skydance Sports programming, scripted and unscripted, for CBS and our CBS Sports. And secondly, don't be surprised if Paramount Plus invites the NFL to say, you know what? You gave Peacock a regular season game exclusively and a playoff game. You did it with ESPN Plus. Do it to us. It's not out of the question that before this merger happens, that maybe this season, certainly next, you will see at least one exclusive regular season, maybe playoff game on Paramount Plus.
Interesting there. Okay, let's move quickly over to the Pac-12. They went off the air, Simon, very inauspiciously last week by just putting up a graphic saying, thanks for watching us. All they have left, Oregon State and Washington, where they're headed as far as broadcasting goes.
Very simple. The CW, they made the deal before Pac-12 networks went off the air. And I think what's going to happen is that given the fact that the CW has ACC football and basketball, now they got the Pac-12, which is going to be Oregon State, Washington State football and basketball. You're going to see double headers. And given the fact that we saw last season ACC doing some primetime games starting at 6:30 going to 10 o'clock at night, I think you may see a primetime doubleheader on most college football Saturdays this fall, where you will have an ACC game followed by a Pac-12 game, Oregon State or Washington State, or maybe both, late at night. So keep your eye on the CW. They're going to make college football a very big thing on Saturday afternoons and evenings in prime time for the first time.
All right, Simon, thanks for coming on.
A pleasure, Craig. Take care. Enjoy, by the way, your week off next week.
Thank you so much. We'll be right back.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Can he be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game
And guess
time
what?
decisions.
I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just
Sometimes
did.
the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
40-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Do you believe Diggs will come up big with Stroud or be the disappointment that he was with Allen in the last, year?
It's not all on Diggs as it was with the Bills. So he only needs to be a secondary piece. Remember now, he's in his 30s, Pharrell. He's in the back nine of his career. They don't need him to be super. They just need him to do a good job.
Pharrell coast to coast. Only on SportsGrid. The Bostonian versus the book.
I mean, here's the question. I know hockey players are pretty superstitious. Do they start to ask themselves the question of being like, we signed Corey Perry? We did what?
No.
We signed Corey Perry? Good news, boys. We're going to the Cup Finals. Bad news, boys. We're losing.
At some point, you got to win one for Corey, right?
I guess
Get on
so.
the team and like, wow, this guy, we gotta win one here.
The Bostonian versus the book.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on the show. We're going to get into a little NFL story about sports cards. And folks, believe it or not, I just could not have predicted that two times in 1 week, we would be talking about the backup quarterback for the Texas Longhorns. Never in a million years. That's why this show is so much fun sometimes. You never know what to expect. It's time now for some last licks. The highly anticipated return of EA Sports College Football is back. It's coming out in less than a week. and is going to be available for purchase and download Xbox, PlayStations, everywhere. In fact, the name and likeness of so many players, both current and past, are actually part of this game as well for the first time ever. One player that was inauspiciously left off the roster was the backup quarterback for the Texas Longhorns named Arch Manning, who we talked about earlier in the show, deciding to stay at Texas and telling reporters he's going to battle it out with Quinn Ewers. He knows he's the backup, and eventually he'll have his chance to play. Well, now all of a sudden, Arch Manning, who for whatever reason decided to not have his name and likeness available for the game, College Football 25, has changed courses and is now doing promotions for the game. In fact, a video was released yesterday with him and his uncle Eli Manning showing Arch Manning playing and participating in the game as himself, as the University of Texas quarterback. And you may be asking what changed his mind. Well, what do you think? It's money. Reportedly $60,000 paid to Arch Manning, as you can now pay college athletes, apparently paid to Manning so he can have his name and likeness in the game. So if you're playing as the University of Texas coming up here in the 2024-25 season, you now can play as Arch Manning, although the Longhorns will play with Quinn Ewers to start the season. Isn't that funny? All right, Justin Jefferson making some interesting comments on the Rich Eisen show yesterday, the NFL offseason now heating up to the NFL regular season, in an interview telling Rich Eisen that, yeah, of course he was a little disappointed that Kirk Cousins ended up leaving his team in the Minnesota Vikings and going to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think that this is disappointing for a number of reasons. Now, Jefferson didn't get too far into the Kirk Cousins squaddle here. But the bottom line is that when you look at this entire situation and the way it played out, I think Jefferson is probably playing the Monday morning quarterback here and saying, you know, if you would have stayed with us, you still would be my starting quarterback right now. Wouldn't have to worry about who's going to start for me and my team this year. But in the end, Jefferson did get paid, and so did Kirk Cousins. And the big question that we will have, maybe is the biggest question surrounding the quarterback position in 24 in the Atlanta Falcons, is Kirk Cousins going to play for very long after they drafted Michael Penix Jr. to be a starter or backup quarterback as well? That's one story to watch in the NFL preseason, because it is expected, by the way, that Penix is going to play in the preseason. Jefferson, I would not expect to play, by the way, for the Vikings. All right, finally, on Sunday, in case you missed this story, this is kind of hard to do here, but a lot of questions surrounding this. And, I'm going to assume that this is, some just insane situation here, but $2 million worth of sports cards, including, as you can see in the picture there, I think, a lot of Mickey Mantle rookie cards stolen, and his 52 Mantle stolen. $2 million worth of graded baseball cards stolen off a couple of different suitcases. And the whole thing was like strategically planned out. There's social media video, ironically, of people that were posing that they were actually working in Dallas at the convention center, just simply waiting for the owner of these cards to leave, and then they just literally go over and poach these briefcases and then run out of the place. Now, they did catch these people on video. There is a reward as well for the people who stole these cards, but the thing that I would say is that every single one of these cards is graded, or at least 95% of them are graded, so they all have serial numbers on the card. So there's no way to sell these cards for the people that stole them. The only way to do this would be to break the cards out of the case and then regrade them as well. But there will be red flags with that as well, with people submitting the same looking cards to the grading company. So I'm not sure what the end game is for these people who stole the cards. I think the best thing they could possibly do is just pick a location, drop them off, and hope nothing else happens to you, because you ain't going to get away with anything on this one. That'll do it for the show. Thanks to Pat Evans and Simon Applebaum for coming on. Also, Jacob Kamaker. Also to our producer, Frankie B. Appreciate you. Coming up next, we've got the early line, followed by Pharrell Coast to Coast at 3 o'clock Eastern. Game time decisions, in-game live prime time. And then tonight, Gabe with a little bit more crying about Team Canada getting shut out. That'll do it for the show today. I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for our next edition of NewsWire. Have a great day.